anyone else would like to share that would support you in creating a clearing emotionally for you going forward.
I think more than anything. This is Laura.
Yeah.
I'm used
Hey, Laura.
to, hi, Sean. I'm used to talking about difficult things. I'm an immigration attorney. I have to open listening for my clients for these difficult, controversial topics. But I have to say, I know I'm not an enlightened being, and I do carry a lot of anger. I'm very present to all of the tragedies in this world, but I'm also a mother who sends her daughter to an elementary school, and I go to the supermarket. I don't go to church, but I know people who do, and I'm at a loss. How in this conversation do we open listening when it seems like there's a force in our country that is not open to listening? To me, it's like Russia. Like, how do we open listening to someone like Vladimir Putin? You know, I struggle with this, and it's hard.
Yeah, no, thank you, Laura. And what do you perceive that force to be?
Greed.
Okay. And greed coming from where and who?
Greed coming from the NRA, which is the National Rifle Association, and the gun manufacturers who use them as a client. The greed of politicians who line their pockets with the NRA money.
Okay. And what if you're entirely 100% correct?
I mean, I believe that is a major force, and I don't.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And
I don't know
Laura,
how to fix it.
Yeah, and Laura, I agree with you. And let's walk through a couple of things, right? And how many, now, what I am, just for context for everyone, this is group influence training is at stake and at play right now for everyone as well. And I'm honoring and empathizing with everything that Laura is saying. And I think here is where removing the NRA from the conversation for a microsecond, right? I'll tell you exactly what I believe. I believe I have no idea what the answer is.
I don't either.
That's not true. I believe I have a general direction of what the answer is, and I think it goes something like this. I think we have a constitution, and that constitution has meaning. And that constitution has the power to be amended, and that there is a slippery slope that on one side people very authentically fear, and I would be in that category of people who fear power of people to drive forward their own agenda, and that there's 10,000 different viewpoints on a continuum from the most extreme supporter of the NRA to the most opposed supporter of the NRA. So let's make one number one and somebody number 10,000, right? I personally feel I probably sit in the space of like 5,000 and maybe 3,000 to 5,000. My fear, and I think the fear of many, sits in the space of how do we deal with all this stuff? Because as soon as you agree, if you sit in the space of 5,000, as soon as you agree, person who sits in slot 1 then let's eliminate all guns in the United States. And if you take a step in the other direction, person at 10,000 is like, yeah, let's have nuclear weapons be allowed because in the homes of people, because the Second Amendment permits us to keep and bear arms, and nuclear weapons is an arm. So where I always begin at like, okay, what is the conversation? And authentically, that is the conversation. There is definitely some human being in this country who thinks the Second Amendment says I should be able to have a nuclear weapon in my house. And there's definitely people who say that the right to keep and bear arms should be crossed out of the Constitution and nobody should have a gun, period. I don't agree with either of those people. I think most people don't agree with either of those people. I think most people say, if you actually have a reasonable conversation, that, yeah, I mean, if we start crossing out things in the Constitution, we're going to have a problem. But yeah, I don't think people, the founding fathers, were anticipating like nuclear weapons being in your house. And if they were anticipating nuclear weapons being in your house, they probably were not anticipating having missiles in your house. I think we could all agree on that. I think we'd all agree that they were also probably not thinking you have like a tank in your backyard. And now we may start to run into some people go, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not so sure they weren't thinking about tanks, because the entire purpose of the Second Amendment was so that people would be able to form and protect themselves against a tyrannical government. And somebody else can go, no, no, no. That's not what they were doing. Because show me where it says that in their thinking, right? And so we're not going to solve all this right now. Where I begin the conversation is to say that the NRA and other focused, financially driven groups, which the NRA clearly is absolutely, this is my belief, is absolutely unequivocally a disgusting and horrific problem. I didn't say that somebody who's an NRA member is a disgusting person. I didn't say the leadership of the NRA is disgusting people. I think it's an example of, to me, a disgusting problem. And disgusting problem is that we need campaign finance reform in this country. Because if any special interest group, the ACLU, the NRA, we should only have Irish people in America group, I'm not saying that group even exists, to the everybody should have to play baseball group, to that we should have governmental funding for baseball, to whatever special interest group we have in this country, the ability for those special interest groups and or corporations who pollute our oceans, who destroy our coral reefs that I love, who want to take Eden Rock out, that people on this call dove on. I think some people on this call on the Eden Rock dive. And certainly it was right out there. It's the beginning of the reef structure that was past Rackham's. Dart, who was a billionaire from the United States that left the country, went to Grand Cayman, now owns somewhere between 25 and 40% of Grand Cayman himself. He owns the Ritz-Carlton. He owns the Kimpton as the majority shareholder. He wanted to take out Eden Rock so more cruise ships can come in. One of the arguably the greatest shore dive in Grand Cayman. Something that, I mean, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people enjoy and have enjoyed and love, with an unbelievably diverse ecosystem. Well, the reason he's even having a conversation about that is because I am sure he and his corporations and his power have donated and given money to the Cayman leadership. And before COVID, he had massive momentum. And one of the so many horrors of COVID, one of the benefits of COVID is that stopped the momentum and stopped cruise ships from coming in, and basically put Cayman on lockdown and saved Eden Rock and Devil's Grotto. So why am I saying all these things? What I'm saying is that as we enter the space of the conversation, the very same person who supports the NRA, not because they have greed, but because they're scared of the Second Amendment, and then corporations, the leadership of the NRA making money from giant corporations supporting it and fat salaries for leadership, and one person is a leader of the NRA because they're making a whole bunch of money, and somebody else might be on the NRA board because they actually believe deeply, seventh generation believing that we have to protect our Second Amendment, because if we don't, then we stand the ability to become Russia or become China, right? And that fear. And then other people thinking, well, you crazy? Like, that's how you become Russia and China, is by giving people guns, and these are all very reasonable positions, is to realize that I offer this perspective that maybe the people to be the most angry with are the people who don't believe anything they're saying,
yep,
and they're only doing it for money.
Mm-hmm.
Those people, I do believe, deserve our anger. Which people those are in the ACLU or the NRA or any special interest group that is motivated by things other than what they profess to be motivated by, which to me is in every single special interest group in this country. And the only reason they even exist is because we don't have campaign finance reform. And oh, by the way, the United States Supreme Court in the last several years has only, in the last 5 years, has only devastatingly affected that issue. Devastating. And by the way, that wasn't a left or right issue. It was like a bipartisan position protecting the First Amendment. So in their protection of the First Amendment, of the ability to give for people and corporations, I think they set up a devastating collateral consequence, which I don't even know how to navigate all this, right? This is way above my pay grade, is the devastating collateral consequence is that you have the ability to buy politicians, to buy laws. And yet the devastating ability to buy laws that may censor social media, the devastating ability to buy politicians who may put, missiles and rocket launchers in people's hands and backyards, right? And all of these horrible, horrible things. So my best offering of advice is to really discern like what the core problems are truly, the core. And we are definitely, as long as politicians can be bought and as long as people make money selling guns, right, we have an institutional problem. But it isn't because people can buy guns, in my humble opinion, only. It's also because politicians can be bought and say things that they don't believe. I don't think anybody thinks somebody should have a nuclear weapon in their house, right? But if you pay people enough and you advance the conversation enough, I think that's crazy. I also don't think, me personally, and I can be wrong, that the Second Amendment is meaningless. And I do think, I don't own a gun. I've never owned a gun. But I sure as heck tell you this, when COVID hit, I wished I had guns. That's the truth. Because I saw a domino board of scenarios where people could be coming to my house because it's a nice house and it's a big house and could be kicking in my front door and taking my water. I didn't believe that was assuredly going to happen, but I thought it might happen. And in some cities and areas, people do get looted and attacked. And if you're a store owner in New York City, you're allowed to have $1,000 of your stuff stolen from you right now. And nobody's getting prosecuted. And that's why store owners are all over the place are shutting down and leaving, and their families and lives are being destroyed. And so all of that is with complete empathy. All of that is to say, like, well, Sean, say, take a position. What do you think about assault weapons? My answer would be, I don't know where the line is exactly because I just don't know enough about it. Like, I don't know if you should be able to have a 6-bullet, if I believe you should be able to have only a 6-bullet revolver. I think it also relates to this belief for me. I think all drugs should be legal. I've never done a drug in my life. I think heroin should be legal. I think heroin should be sold at CVS. I think crack should be sold at CVS. I think as many opioids as you want to consume should be sold at CVS. I think it should be taxed. And I think there should be amazing oversight of governmental programs that help people get off of drugs. Then you would, by definition, take guns out of the illegal guns out of the inner city. And you'd make inner city schools safer. So I probably said something that's offended everybody here, and probably said things that have made everybody here feel like something I said was in alignment. So what I would love to do, and how I see the world changing, is for everybody to be able to have the conversation that way, that there is a complex intersection that I personally fundamentally believe that if you took every belief of the Democratic Party, every belief of the Republican Party, and you put me in a room with either side, I would make them look ridiculous within 5 minutes, and I'd have people in their own party laughing at them within 60 minutes in a comedy show. Because a two-party system is preposterous, fundamentally. Now, I don't believe if somebody's running as Democrat or Republican for office, like, awesome, amazing, because that's what the system is. Let's go. Like, yeah, like, let's do good. Where everybody begins to lose me is where they maintain the extremes of their party line uniformly. I'm like, really? You really believe every single thing that party believes? Like, are you serious or kidding? I said to my dad on the phone the other day, I said, Dad, because he was going, because I am somebody who believes in issue by issue, and a lot of issues I go, listen, I have no idea. Like, I don't know when it becomes something that should be an illegal gun under the Second Amendment and when it should be a legal gun under the Second Amendment. I don't know. But I do think people should be caring about it. And I applaud the people caring about it, analyzing it and discussing it and debating it. Where I think it goes wrong is when we vilify and attack people, unless we know for sure that they really don't believe what they're saying or have a really strong confidence they don't actually believe what they're saying, which a lot of people do that. And that I think we should be very angry about, is when politicians or people don't really believe what they're saying and are just saying it. That's crazy. Or they're taking positions that they haven't thought about really deeply. I don't think we should be angry, but we should expose it and be like, listen, maybe you want to really think about this a little bit more deeply. Right, I'm going to pause in one more minute. But what I said to my dad was, I'm just going to, I'm always open and authentic. Abortion. Whoa. Like, there's a whoa, right? Some people think it's murder. People think it's murder to say you can't have an abortion. I said this to my dad, who is a, very, CNN, MSNBC, daily watching, posting on Facebook, anti-right, every day. I just said this, that. I said, do you believe every single thing I said? Because all I want to do is talk about how angry he was and upset with he was, and Republicans and people on the right. And I'm always trying to talk about, like, unity and understanding, and be like, don't categorize everybody that way. I said to him, I said, do you think my mom and Jerry are Republicans? I said, do you think my mom and Jerry have a gun in the house? Do you think my mom and Jerry want to see kids murdered? Do you think my mom and Jerry, my mom who read Bible study in prison for 10 years, said, Dad, do you think mom, and say this lovingly, do you think mom gives more to poor people or you do? In her time and her energy and her effort. Like, so just relax with how you generalize people, And I said, and second, I said, you're a Democrat. I said, Grandma Rose and Nani were Democrats. My mom's Democrat. I said, let me just ask you a question. What do you think Nani and Grandma Rose, who are both, no longer here on this earth with us, I said, what do you think they would say about partial birth abortion? I said, I'm not judging you or anything. I'm just asking you. What do you think they would say about that? Would they be horrified? I said, of course. I said, just relax. And I don't even know enough about partial birth abortion and things to, like, like, is it only a rape kit? I don't even know, because that's not what I for anybody who that's a super important issue to you, God bless you. That's great. And if you say, well, that should be an important issue to you, thank you. Please reserve your judgment of me. I'm working on a lot of important issues in my life, and I'm doing my best. Like, I'm not going to tell you what you should think is important. Well, actually, I will tell you what I think you should think is important. I honor it for me, but let's relax on our judgment of each other for our prioritization of issues a little bit. And I'll pause there. I hope something I said was at least reasonably helpful. I'm happy, Laura, to answer any other question. And I honor your anger, your frustration, your upset, your rage. I honor all of it. And I honor your caring of people. So I pause. Laura, back to you. Laura, are you still here with us?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to thank you, Sean. Actually, as you spoke, my my anger level reduced, which is the key to opening listening. So I do appreciate that. It's hard. It's a struggle for me because, again,
Yeah.
my anger is not necessarily reserved to individuals. I understand that there is, and as Sean wrote in the chat, the polarization and division that I completely believe has been stoked in our society. Again, it's been a calculated campaign against us people to divide us and to make these extreme arguments. Like you said, I think that you're totally right. And that's what frustrates me, is that I know the vast majority of people in that continuum no matter what it is, what issue it is, we are all in the center. The
Yes.
vast majority of us are in the center of that
Yes.
continuum. And I have people who call me, you know, super left wing, and I'm like, you don't know my friends. 'Cause that's not the
Yeah.
case, you know? The vast majority of us sit in the center of this continuum, but because of, and I think you're right, Citizens United was a, you know, part of what polarized us, because politicians say these crazy things because they get paid to say it. And
And
yeah, we see
and
it in both parties, 100%.